And welcome to a VSA Capital video blog, and delighted today to have Brett Boynton, the CEO of Tectonic Gold. Morning, Brett, or perhaps I should say good afternoon because you're down in Sydney.
That's right, afternoon. Actually, the sun's down. It's already dark outside, but we're still hard at it.
The sun's down, but you can't go out and enjoy a sundowner, can you? Because you've been in lockdown for sort of God knows how long.
No, that's right. We're in lockdown. The Sydney team is at home, and we've become very efficient from working at home. Fortunately, our Queensland team is not in lockdown, so the field team is out and about, and we're active.
And obviously, drilling is what drives this company. So I mean, that's clearly important. You are drilling, and that's what you are doing at the moment. But what we really wanted to do was put out a video with a bit of a chat about what's really going on at the company. I mean, like all exploration companies, you know, news flow is critical, but of course, you can't constantly pump the market with news flow. And some of the things that people want to sort of know about actually aren't necessarily one of our RNSs, because, you know, let's kick off though with, why don't you give a quick 30-second summary of where you are in your drilling, which has been going on for about 3 or 4 years, and what it's all leading up to.
Sure. We had quite a comprehensive report commissioned, had an independent expert come in and write up a summary, kind of bringing together all of the work that we've done at the Specimen Hill site over the last couple of years. And that was primarily to have an independent report to go and do a show and tell with some of the majors, talking to the gold and the copper companies. And so that was quite a big piece of work since the last drilling program. At the same time, we had a sense check, you know, as kind of good scientists and research and development people as well. We brought independent experts in to make sure we weren't drinking too much Kool-Aid. And we brought in some very highly recognizable names out of the industry to have a look at what we've done and give us an opinion on, yes, we have got what we say we've got. We fed that into the independent report, and we pushed that out, and we've had a very positive response. In fact, we've had some of the majors out to site already. We had a break with COVID because restrictions crossing the border and restrictions moving equipment around prevented us getting back to drilling, but that did enable us to actually get a site visit going and take some parties out to site, and we've got more interested corporate parties out there this week. So we really are advancing on that strategy of drilling it up, getting enough information there to entice a larger partner to come in and work with us, you know, as Greatland Gold has done. We always say we're trying to emulate what Greatland did by bringing a bigger partner in. So that's going well.
And by the way, that is obviously your entire strategy, isn't it? I mean, this story, so many exploration companies are, to a certain extent, should we say, lifestyle companies. You know, that just isn't what you're all about. You are all about delivering shareholder value, because obviously you are a major shareholder.
Absolutely. You know, myself and the team control 40 to 50% of the equity, so we're highly motivated to get this moved forward and to get to a liquidation event, either on one of the projects or, you know, potentially on the company more broadly. But our first prize is to partner on our Specimen Hill project, and then we'll move on to the next project and let one of the bigger boys take care of that. The things that we're going after are too big for a small team to tackle and take into development. Right? This is hundreds of millions of dollars of development capital goes into the scale of opportunity we're looking at. So we are the exploration experts. We use advanced technology to go after opportunities others have overlooked. And we've unlocked those with technology cost effectively. What we say is our insight into how to use technology, and some of the technology we've helped develop, enables us as a team to shift the economics of exploration. And we can do with what we're doing with advanced remote sensing technology now, what Newcrest was spending $20–30 million on with a drilling campaign when they discovered Cadia. So we're going after very similar sized targets. And in fact, our Specimen Hill project is working up to a regional scale project, multiple targets within the tenement. We're getting exceptionally high copper and gold returns out of our recent testing. And we're now starting to attract the attention of those larger players coming in and spending significant amounts of time and money doing thorough due diligence on us.
You brought in topics for numerous questions there, so I'm going to rattle through quite quickly. But first, this new technology, I mean, maybe you want to give a little bit of an explanation about that, because, we're so used to getting these RNSs that come through with streams of assay results that, show us however many grades per whatever meters. This new technology actually, I mean, as well as saving a lot of money, actually does mean that you can identify what you've got much quicker with just sort of a handheld gun or something, is it?
So the way we look at the use of technology is drilling is very expensive. We don't want to be doing drilling for testing and discovery. We want to be doing drilling for resource definition. So we want to make the discovery without having to do the drilling. That's why we use other technologies which are much more cost effective. That does two things. One, it enables a smaller group like us to go and play in the bigger space, which would ordinarily be the remit of multi-billion-dollar companies. And two, by being a pioneer of this new technology, we've been able to attract the support of the Australian federal government in a very, very generous support program through their research and development tax incentive. So we get 43 cents back on every dollar we spend of qualifying research expenditure. So while we're out doing field work, that is our laboratory. And the testing that we do, everything except the drilling itself, but all of the other testing and all of the ancillary support for the testing qualifies for this rebate. And that's why we involve universities and we bring in recognized experts. It's not just to sort of ensure that our reports are of a high standard to show to the likes of South 32, Newcrest and Sandfire and others. It's so that we are recognized as a proper research and development project. On the back of that technology, we've been able to advance things quite quickly through the early stage. Typically, the exploration process can be quite long. You have a field season, you go and do some work, you do some soil testing, then you go back and you review the assays, you get the chemical work, the chemical analysis done. You sit down and think about it, and you have a chat with other geologists, and then you come back the next season, and that cycle can be a 6-12 month cycle. So you can go years in the early stage. Then you latch onto something, you focus your attention, and hopefully you get lucky reasonably early at that sort of later stage of the exploration, and you bring the drill bit out and you start to test your theory and hopefully move quite quickly from there. But it can be many years before you get there. So with this technology, we're able to see deeper, more quickly, more accurately. And then when we bring the drill rig up on site, we can very selectively go after areas of very high interest with high confidence. And that testing confirmation process then gives us the data to go and sit with the majors. Here's our thesis. This is what we've done. The work's of a high quality, and let's think about how we partner up to unlock this.
Now, I mean, the other thing that seems to have happened that you touched on there is that you're named Tectonic Gold, and you were looking for gold in these IRGS systems, and you're finding gold, but you're also actually finding a lot of copper, aren't you? And actually, that's probably what's going to really attract the majors. Not, well, the copper, but also, I mean, we're not talking about a small site here. We're talking about a massive site, aren't we?
Yeah, our mineralized corridor is now over 10 kilometers long. This is a world-class discovery, or multiple discoveries within a corridor. So what we're looking at with the name Tectonic Gold gives you an indication. We're looking at these tectonic plates that crush together, and when they do that, they buckle and shatter the Earth's crust, and that creates the plumbing, the conduit for fluids to come through and bring the mineralization. And so understanding the structure is key to unlocking these, and then understanding how the fluid flows and where it's coming from and where it's going to, because we get metal zonation. So you get an area closer to the heat source, maybe higher in one element, and then as you move away, you zonate through to other elements. So typically you find copper and gold together. So we had been primarily focused on the gold, and we look at the other elements as sort of pathfinder elements to zone in on the gold. What we found is there's been multiple phases of mineralization. So some of those phases of mineralization have been primarily gold, and some have been primarily copper. And in areas we're now finding exceptionally high grades of copper. So one of the last teams that came out to site. So it's always nice when the big boys come and they bring their expensive equipment that we can't afford. They brought out this handheld scanning unit, a PXRF unit, and you simply point it at the rock, pull the trigger, and seconds later you're getting a reading of how much copper there is there. It's not a gold assay substitute, but it does give you a very accurate copper field test. And we were pretty confident that they were going to be hitting 2-3% and above, because we've tested those rocks historically. Anyway, we had some raised eyebrows when they pulled the trigger and they got 40 and 50% copper coming back. And if you look at the sample, we've taken the samples, cut them open so you can see inside, and you can see the native copper there. It's shining right back at you. So we know we've got extremely high grades through the system, and that's really what's attracted the copper players, because as much as there's some exotic names in the battery metal space, all of it needs copper as well. And
I mean, you have to be a little bit careful on one rock, obviously, but I mean, actually my in-house geologist here, analyst at VSA Capital, tells me that, you're now tantalizingly close to a world-class discovery, but that these drilling results that you're doing at the moment are the key to actually sort of defining it. So when might we hear, some assays or news from these current drilling results?
Yeah, so active on site now. We've just started with the follow-up drilling program. We'll be drilling over the course of the next 3 weeks. It's not a very lengthy campaign. It's a number of short holes in our Southern Copper discovery, which is a very high-grade area that we picked up about 18 months ago, made that discovery. We're going into an area sort of about midway. The Southern Copper is the one extremity of the mineralized zone we've been focused on. About midway, there's an area called Goldsmith's Reef, which is reef mining. So it's high-grade reef mining, which was done on a very small scale underground, down to probably 20 or 30 meters. And when I say historically, this goes back to sort of pre-World War I. And so what happened in the Australian goldfields, but particularly in the East Coast, is there were lots of small syndicates taking out this high-grade material. World War I came along, that disrupted it. A lot of the information was lost because, of course, many of those miners went off to Europe and didn't come back. Things kind of got going again, and then World War II came along, and that really decimated the knowledge base. And then there wasn't a resurgence of mining in this belt. Actually, the easier to find gold in Western Australia attracted all of the gold investment. So although this region is a prolific producer and many multi-million ounce discoveries have been made and mined, there's areas where there's clearly very high grade material that wasn't fully prosecuted because they just did not have the technology in those days to go after it on a large scale. So at Goldsmiths, we went underground in May, June into the old workings. We took some face samples off the old workings, tested those, and we're getting gold grades of 2 to 5 grams per ton, so some consistently medium grade coming out of that, and high copper returns as well. What we're going to do there is we're going to go and drill underneath. So we're going to see how far that extends down, and we'll drill probably 2 sections underneath. And then very exciting is we're going back to the main lodes area of Specimen Hill, where it all started for us. And we're going back to retest that porphyry. We skimmed the edge of the porphyry in January, and we're going to go back and put a number of deeper holes in there. So we're going down to about 350 meters there, trying to get right into the guts of that porphyry there. And that could be the company maker for us. And
we might hear about that towards the back end of this year.
Absolutely, we'll get. We're not taking core, so it's quite a quick turnaround on this. We'll get those samples into the labs with ALS within weeks. There is a bit of a backlog. There's a lot of activity, so the labs are busy. But we will certainly have, second half of Q4, we'll have assay results out on that.
Okay, and look, you've mentioned a few times here that the majors are all looking, and we know that. We know the majors are desperate to sort of replenish their abilities to make new discoveries, and so they're relying upon people like you. I hear from my sources that yes, what you're saying is correct, that there is one particular major that is really all over you and going out to field. So I can verify that. I've heard it independently. I mean, you can't say anything that isn't in the public market, Brett, but I mean, your confidence level that, you know, this is likely to happen. I mean, you obviously feel pretty confident about it. I mean, again, you have to be careful what you say, but I mean, if something like this does happen, you know, you're not talking about a share price of a penny or 2 pence, or even the sort of target price out there with a line of 5 pence. You're talking much higher than that, aren't you?
Well, we like to see that as the first cab off the rank. Keep in mind that isn't our only project. We've got a portfolio, and it's always been our intention to partner on the first one, get that properly capitalized to do that large scale work, and then immediately step into the next one. So we think there's a lot of runway. We don't only have a kind of one horse in the race. Obviously, we're talking to as many people as will answer the phone. The upside of COVID is because the Australian border's closed, none of the corporate development people from all of the major Australian companies are finding it easy to go and look at anything in PNG or South America. So they're all stuck in Australia, which is fantastic for us because we've got an Australian project. So we do have a benefit of a captive audience, a truly captive audience, at least until the end of the year. So we're very keen to close out this first transaction as quickly as possible, and with a really high quality partner in this. And then we'll be looking to get into the next project as soon as we can next year, and start working that up as well.
So two more questions, maybe, before we wrap this up. I mean, one of the nice things, you mentioned that the state government obviously helps with your funding, but you also do have some operations in Southern Africa, which help with your funding as well. And so you're quite unusual in a way that you've got cash flow coming from elsewhere that allows you basically to do exploration without having to constantly tap the market for equity, which is a positive thing. Presumably that's all going well, is it?
That's going well, yes. I mean, in terms of cash, we well cashed up, and we've had great support from shareholders that came in this time last year, then exercised their warrants and supported a follow-on drilling program. And in fact, we'd have enough cash now to do a third drilling program out of that same budget. And those shareholders still have warrants which they've well to the beginning of next year. So we're in a very strong financial position. Yes, in South Africa, we partnered up with AIM-listed Kazera. They've been putting some announcements out recently. Kazera have done a great job with our team. We're in joint venture with them there, bringing a small diamond operation into production in South Africa on the South African government diamond mine. They are also in the stages of negotiating some additional concessions there. It looks like we'll be going to contract operate a processing plant that will enable us to generate more cash flow. We'll be able to process our own diamonds through the plant and bring in diamonds from other concession holders. So that'll be an additional source of capital. The primary interest for us there, though, is getting our footprint on that infrastructure where that plant is with power and water, because we're waiting for our heavy mineral sands license to come through. So the same process that eroded the diamonds in the Kimberleys, washed them down the Orange River to the Atlantic, and then the Atlantic washed them back up onto the beach, which is what we're mining. A range of minerals were washed down alongside those diamonds. And so that's the heavy minerals deposit that's there. Within that is a range of rare earths. In particular, we're after the monazite, which is a very high value and quite a high concentration for a mineral sand deposit there. To give you an example, we've done some testing along that coastline, and we're getting an HMS content, a heavy mineral sand content, out of those beach sands running up to 70%. As an example, in Australia, we've got Australian listed companies running processes on 12% heavy mineral sand content. So exceptionally high grades. Nobody's been able to touch it historically because it's been a diamond mine. And because of the extreme security around diamonds, only the diamonds were mined. Now that there are areas that have been mined out, the diamond mining company has allowed us to put an application in for heavy mineral sand license. And we're hoping that that's going to come through shortly, and we'll be able to, alongside the diamond processing plant, which we're going to take into contract operation, we'll be able to use that same facility to build a heavy mineral sands processing operation.
I mean, it's a beautiful sort of, a little bit of icing on the cake. As I say, the main purpose of that is to generate cash to then fund what you're doing in Australia. Maybe the final thing before we wrap up, Brett. I mean, you know, a year ago we did a placing. The share price shot up with a lot of excitement to 2p. One of the problems with exploration companies, of course, is that investors get bored if there's no news flow, and this boredom has seen it drift off. And I think today we're at about 0.95, so he's sort of halved. Now, you know, it is unfortunately just investors being bored, really, and they dribble it out. And maybe, you know, it's the opportunity for new investors to come in for the next wave. But I mean, you know, I suppose really the question is, you know, we are going to be getting some pretty good news flow, I think, in the next, should we say, up to the end of the year. So hopefully that will be the sort of catalyst that drives the price back to 2p and higher. Obviously, hopefully is what people want. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in as much as we look at opportunities others have overlooked, I very much think that as a stock, Tectonic is an overlooked opportunity. We're obviously on the Aquis, so for many people that only look at the AIM, they may not have looked at us, and they may not be aware of our story. I think Kazera's progress has attracted some of their AIM investors to have a look at us. And as we get our news flow out, I'm hopeful that we'll attract a bit more chatter on the boards and a bit more interest. You know, there's very, very thin trading. So the share price is probably not reflected. If somebody wanted to come in and build a meaningful stake, it would be difficult to do so simply because we don't have much liquidity at the moment. I'm hoping that as we get news flow come through, we'll be able to bring in new investor interest, and we'll start to increase that liquidity and that active trading at a much, much higher price.
Well, look, I can tell you if a major comes in and partners with you, the share price will shoot up regardless of that. So let's keep our fingers crossed that happens. Brett, great to talk to you. I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon as these results come through.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Much appreciated.